Well, hello everybody from Active Melody. I want to do a quick webcam video here about something I've been working on, which is learning the notes up and down the fretboard, all the way up and down the neck. It's something that I've came to realize is important, something to learn that I never have. I should have learned a long time ago. I think it's going to open up a lot for playing and soloing, chords, scales, just everything, knowing to be able to jump to any note anywhere on the fretboard at any time. I've always put it off just because it seemed a bit overwhelming when you think of 22, 24 frets, whatever you got, 6 strings, all these notes to learn and memorize. I couldn't think of a way to possibly do it. I've looked up different things online on YouTube and stuff, and I've seen different systems, all the way from just going up and down and counting out the E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, going all the way up and down, all the strings. That doesn't work for me. It's just memorizing like that. Halfway through it, I'll forget what I'm doing, and it just doesn't. There's another crazy system where you find a note and you skip a string, you jump up a fret, or you skip 2 strings and jump up a fret, depending on where you are. And to me, that's too much. It's complicated, and when you want to translate these notes into playing into scales or solos, I don't feel like I don't have time to sit here and do this equation of jumping around and counting frets and this and that. So I want to try to come up with a different way to do it. And the other day, last week, I came up with, I was thinking about it. I wasn't even playing, but I was just thinking about it, and I just kind of came up with this in my head, and it seemed to have worked for me. I've now learned all the notes in about a week on the fretboard using this, just like 5 minutes a day. So anyway, let me get to it here. So first of all, there's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet, right? And what I started to do at first is I didn't even worry about anything past the 12th fret, because everything just repeats after that, right? So if you know it down here, you can easily transpose it up here. It's just add 12 to it. If you're down here on the 5th fret, well, you add 12, you're up at the 17. It's the same note. So an A here is an A here, and A here is an A here, and so on and so forth. So I took that away, and then the next thing was I didn't worry about sharps and flats, because I just focus on the natural notes, because just to make it easier to comprehend. And once you know where the naturals are, it's easy. I mean, you go up, that's an A, you go up a fret to an A sharp, you go down to an A flat, and that goes for everything in the musical alphabet. Obviously, except E to F and B to C, you're just going to go to another natural, and you will know that, or you do know that. So, and I'm sure a lot of people already know all the notes in the neck, or have a system of their own, or a way to do it. There's probably people that don't. I wish I would have learned this earlier, so hopefully this will help somebody. Okay, so I cut down the neck by a third by not worrying about up here. I cut down the sharps and flats. Now I'm just worried about 7 notes, A through G. And then what I had the realization that I guess I always knew this, but I never put it together, and this is just how I think, and some of you are going to be like, duh. But once I realized this, it made things a lot easier. On each string between the open and the 12th fret, each note, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, only shows up one time on each string, just once. And, I used to, when I think about it, I'd be like, well, I got to learn all these A's all over the place and all these D's and C's. If you look at it like there's only one on each string, it's a lot more manageable. So start from there. And for example, I started with A. A is a good place to start, I guess, for everything. Like we learned that first box, and the A pentatonic is just in the middle of the neck, and it's a good place to start. So what I did, I just went string by string, and I just reviewed found out where those notes were. So for instance, in the low E, you get your 5th fret. On the A string, it's your open. And then you get the D string, it's your 7th fret. You get the G string, it's on your 2nd fret. B string, it's up at the 10th. And then the high E, it's on the 5th again. And just like everything else, on the guitar, the low E and the high E are exactly the same. So that really cuts out a whole string. So now you're really only down to 5 strings and 7 notes. So that's pretty manageable, really, because each string has got one of each of the notes. So then, okay, so I went over the A's. So then for the next couple days, I took 5 minutes when I picked up my guitar before I started playing, and I just went over, just ran through it, A, and then, you know, different order, and just said them out loud as I did it. And then I even put on a jam track, and it wasn't really anything musical sounding that I was playing, but it just kind of helped to jump from one to the other, to have some music going on and in context sort of thing. And in 2 days, 5 minutes a day, I had the A's down. Next day, same thing I just did with the E's. And you got the E on your open low E, right? And then you got the 7th fret of your A, and then you're down the 2nd fret of the D, up to the 9th fret of the G, and then on the 5th fret of the B, and that's your tuning note for your high E, right? And then your open E. Now, another thing that makes this sound not as complicated is, most of us, if you know your bar chords, you already know a lot of these notes. Excuse me. I call the single bar chords double bar chords. Most people call them E-shaped and A-shaped. But when you learn your bar chords, you were learning the notes on your first 2 strings, or the low 2 strings. Because that's an A chord, that's an A note, right? G chord, G note, C note. And so really most people, I think, know their notes on the low E, at least up to the maybe 8th or 10th fret. And the same thing on the A string with your double bar chords. You know, you got a B, C, D, E, you know, and those chords are just the notes on the A string. So right there, you're at least familiar with the notes on the low E and the A, and then the high E is the same as the low E. That's 3 strings right there that, even if you just review it a little bit, you pretty much know all those notes. Then you got these middle 3 strings, which were the ones that I had to sit and think about. But once I did, it really made sense. So, you know, like with the A, you know, I would have to, for the middle 3, I would, you know, have to start and count up to find them, you know, on the G string. Yeah, G sharp, A, okay, there's the A. And then the same thing all the way to D until you get all the way up here until an A. But once you got them, then you just have those 6 notes on 6 strings, and you just, you know, you A, and same thing with E, A, B, C, F, everything. And after reviewing for a couple days, I knew all the notes down here. Therefore, I knew them all up here. And like I said, you can find the sharps and the flats really easily from learning those notes. So I don't know, that seemed to work for me. Now, I have another step that I just kind of talked myself into learning, and I kind of confused myself by this next thing. And that is, and if people are interested in this video and it made sense to anybody and there's positive feedback, I'll do another video of what I did next, and that is in the context of the minor pentatonic scale, how knowing these notes, how you can move around from box to box in an easier way than at least what I used to do, which is, you know, fumbling through exactly where the whole box is and trying to get to another box. But if you know where the roots are, where they are on which string translates the same way in every key, and it sounds more complicated than it is, but if I can find a way to explain it, I think it'll open up a lot of doors for a lot of people who don't already know that. So anyway, I hope this was a help to some of you, and let me know what you think, and happy picking.